From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. The Idaho Humanities Council got a letter last week terminating all of their federal funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities. That funding makes up 75% of their budget, and the council says it cannot go on without that money. The endowment's letter says, and I quote, "The NEH is repurposing its funding allocations in a new direction in furtherance of the president's agenda," end quote. David Pettyjohn is the council's executive director, and he's joining us now to talk more about what this means for Idaho. David, nice to have you on the program.
Thanks for having us.
So, David, you told the Idaho Capital Sun in an interview that this federal funding makes up 75% of your budget. So how much money are we actually talking about?
So the allocation that we received from the NEH was $929,000. That was for fiscal year 24. So that, like I said, is about 75% of our total operating budget. And if you look at it, it's less than 40 cents per Idahoan per year.
So what does that, that's almost $1 million. What does that federal grant pay for? Yeah. So what does that federal grant pay for here in Idaho specifically?
So that allocation is used for a variety of purposes. You know, one of the main sources that we use this federal funding for is putting the money directly in Idaho communities through our grants program. We offer a variety of grants to organizations to do their locally based humanities programming. So that has had that was paused. It's also used for other programs that we do, such as the Museum on Main Street program that brings a Smithsonian exhibit to rural Idaho communities free of charge. Also, we support a reading and discussion program called Let's Talk About It Oklahoma, and really provides opportunity for, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And it kind of provides these opportunities for communities to have a reading and discussion program that allows them to, understand one another and find common ground.
I want to go back to that Smithsonian exhibit you mentioned, David, because you bring quite a few exhibits to Idaho from the Smithsonian. So without this federal funding, is that program now in jeopardy?
Yes, it is. It is. We are reaching out to some potential funders for that. We might have to streamline some of the aspects. We were scheduled to bring in the Voices and Votes exhibit coming up later this summer, but we are having to, reevaluate that program. But it is definitely, we are determined to still bring the Smithsonian to Idaho.
What was it like opening up that letter?
So it was a shock. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It was last Wednesday evening, and we had received some sort of notification that the NEH was going to potentially terminate, many grants. And come to find out, it's almost 1,200 that were completely terminated nationwide. And we're part of a larger organization called the Federation of State Humanities Councils. And we have a listserv of all the executive directors in every state council. There are 56 of us. Every state and territory does have one. And I was, kind of winding down, and I decided to check my email. And the director from Alabama posted that he received his termination notice. And then the messages started coming in. And at first, I didn't find ours. And then I realized that it was in my junk folder because this email did not come from an official NEH.gov email address. It was through Microsoft.com. We are, required to, all of our communication with the National Endowment for the Humanities is through an online grants portal. This was not through that portal. And we later found out that even the staff at NEH did not know that these termination notices were going out. So it was a shock. It was a shock because part of the letter said, like you had mentioned, shifting priorities, but also saying about compliance and other aspects of that in the termination agreement. And this is a relationship that we have had very successfully with the National Endowment for the Humanities for 52 years. And being the state affiliate of the NEH, there are many things that we comply with. Reports that we submit. We do an annual
Hmm.
audit that gets submitted to the NEH. So it was quite a shock.
Well, and for 52 years being in existence here in Idaho, that also
Correct.
means that you have dealt with numerous presidential administrations over the
Correct.
years. With that said, can we talk about plans to celebrate America's 250th anniversary? And I know
Yes,
that this
of
was something
course.
that has been on your agenda. Um, is losing this funding going to impact those plans?
Absolutely. I mean, I will just be very blunt. We are really fighting for our survival here. I know of several councils, nationwide have said that they will have to close their doors in a matter of months. Here in Idaho, we are very fortunate, thanks to the thinking of those who came, before me in this chair and our board and our partners. We do have some reserves that can help sustain us, but with those limited resources, we do have to look at our programming and
Mm,
our ability to do some things. So we are, still planning on recognizing the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But one of the things that was really disappointing is that state humanities council communities are uniquely positioned to provide these opportunities throughout the state. And so, like I said, with the other programs, we're still reevaluating, but we definitely hope to still have the opportunity to recognize this important moment in our history.
hmm I want to talk about the importance of the Humanities Council to the state of
Yeah,
Idaho, David. There's always been this back and forth, right? Between, I mean, even in schools, between humanities and STEM, right? And
right,
is there a need for the humanities?
right.
As someone who has based her entire career on it, I would say yes, there is. Um,
Yes.
with right. Um, but in all seriousness, how important is what you do to the state of Idaho?
That's a really, really good question and something that is really critical right now. But the humanities provider an opportunity for us to connect with one another. I think everyone understands that these are very challenging times, and we're very divided. And so the programs that we provide are these amazing opportunities for Idahoans to sit down, talk with one another, and find that common ground, which is so incredibly needed at this moment. Also, what the Idaho Humanities Council provides are this infrastructure, to our cultural network across the state. We all talk about infrastructure, roads and bridges, and even the internet. But the Humanities Council, there is this cultural infrastructure all across the state that connects historical societies, libraries, and museum that collect this knowledge of those who came before us and allows us to understand one another in a way that is kind of a challenge right now. So the
Hmm.
humanities at this moment and tying back into the 250th, kind of looking back on our history and having these discussions about voices and what it means to be an Idahoan and what it means to be an American for this very small investment of federal dollars. And one of the things I also kind of want to point out is that $929,000 that we receive, that just pays. And although it's 75% of our budget, we actually have to match that, one to one.
Oh,
And it's not just through cash, it's through all of the in kind contributions that we receive, across the state. So for every dollar that is invested in Idaho, that is quadrupled. It is almost $4 in cost share that is provided across the state. So that's why the humanities are important, and that's why the IHC we have been really proud to have this opportunity and hope to continue to have this opportunity for many years to come of bringing Idahoans together.
hmm well, and I'm looking at your website right now,
Yeah,
and what sticks out to me is all of these events and all of these
Yep.
programs that you have, right?
Right.
With the one goal of like open discussion, right? Open communication. There is
Correct.
nothing on your website that says anything about, you know, this idea being wrong or this idea being right. And I
Correct.
think sometimes, especially in the climate and culture we seem to be living in right now, is that we're missing sometimes those discussions. And so
Absolutely.
how important is it then that we as a community keep funding the Idaho Humanities Council for these specific conversations?
Like you mentioned, everything's kind of political these days. One side or the other. The Humanities Council, we are not political at all. The humanities are not political. One of the things that I've had the joy of doing is the opportunity of, we always get asked, what are the humanities? What are they? And really, it's just stories. It's just understanding one another and kind of providing these tools to help us understand what it means to be a human being. uh, you know, Kind of going out, and as we engage with one another, we seem to, kind of be in our bubbles or our specific group. And it's really kind of finding the humanness in our fellow
Mm-hmm.
humans. And so the humanities provide those unique opportunities to have that chance to see the world through another person's eyes, to understand what it means to be not only a human being, but an Idahoan, or just a different idea or a different perspective. So that's why this is critical, specifically at this moment in time. And I want to kind of point back that this is actually the 60th anniversary of the founding of the National Endowment for the Humanities and the
Mm.
National Endowment for the Arts. And in 1965, when Lyndon Johnson signed it, it was an interesting time in the 60s. Uh, Technology was advancing. There was all of these movements of
Right, in the midst of the civil
advancement.
rights
Yes,
movement.
exactly, exactly. The civil rights era was, but there was this need they felt at that time that we need to understand who we are as human beings,
Mm.
so we become the masters of that technology and not their slaves. So, allowing us to understand what it means to be a human being is that critical piece. We talk about artificial
Mm-hmm.
intelligence, we talk about other things. But as we move forward, we need to stay in touch with who we are.
I want to get down to the nitty gritty here.
Yeah, of
Can you
course.
make up the budget? Can you make up this budget cut? I mean, can you do it with private donation? I mean, do you get state
No,
funding? I mean, the answer is
we
no.
do not. Yeah, yeah. We do not receive any funding from the state of Idaho. We are a nonprofit. We have a wonderful network of supporters who do provide donations, but it's about a 700, a $900,000 gap that we'd have to fill,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be incredibly challenging.
Because that would have to come from private money.
That would have to come from private money. Absolutely, foundations.
Is there a chance your federal funding might be restored?
There is, yes, yes. So each year is a process. And our funding actually originates in the House Interior Subcommittee, who at this time, that committee is chaired by our very own Congressman Mike Simpson. Congressman Simpson has been a staunch champion of the arts and humanities across the nation. So I know that we are in constant communication with Simpson's office as well as our other delegation. I do know that both of our senators, Crapo and Risch, their teams have reached out to the NEH, as has Simpson's team. So one of the things that we are asking our supporters to do is to continue to reach out to our delegation, continue to tell them about the importance of the humanities, tell them about the importance of IHC. We actually have a link on our website, which is idahohumanities.org, a toolkit that kind of highlights our work across the state. It allows, and also even a script for those who that you can just cut and paste, fill in to send to our delegation. The budgeting process is always evolving. This is something that we've always dealt with, at the NEH. This is different. The you 80% of the NEH staff has also been placed on administrative leave. So the fiscal year 26 process is underway. As for fiscal year 25, we're not sure kind of what that process would be. But fortunately, we do have the reserves that we can still continue to operate and still continue to do some programming for the rest of this fiscal year.
Okay, for the rest of this fiscal year. With that said, David, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
if someone's listening right now and they are inclined to give a donation, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can go to our website, idahohumanities.org. There is a donate button. Every donation would be greatly appreciated, but I'd also ask that spread the word. Talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, send them to our website, and just continue to contact our delegation. I've also contacted the governor's office. I know that, Governor Little has expressed support for the humanities as well, even though we do not receive any state funding. So all the support we can get and as many voices that can share the news.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and letting us know about this. We've been speaking with David Pettyjohn. He is the executive director of the Idaho Humanities Council. We've been talking about the Trump administration cutting all of their federal funding. We will, of course, put more information about the cuts on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudet.